Thanks for tuning in to the Mission Matters podcast, where we feature successful, mission-driven leaders committed to creating a positive change in the world. Our mission with this channel is to inspire other leaders by providing industry insights, new ideas, and inspiring stories from the pros.
Well, hello again. Paul Fife here, where I host this show and I talk with leaders heading up mission-focused organizations, always leading from the heart, inspiring others, including me, and making a difference in our communities. This episode is sponsored by Paul Gregory Media, or PGM as it's affectionately known, also a B Corporation. To find out what a B Corporation is or what Paul Gregory Media does, visit paulgregorymedia.com. I'm excited about today's episode. I have with me Nancy Wiersum. Hi, Nancy. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes. Just a little bit about you. I lifted this from your LinkedIn profile. You're a dynamic and influential nonprofit fundraising and communication professional devoted to moving organizations of impact. I love that phrase, moving organizations of impact forward to their maximum potential. And I know you from your NCTV days, or NCTV 17 days, if I wanted to say the whole name. And now you're the Executive Vice President of Advancement for Loaves Fishes. I think you're going to be celebrating your seventh year anniversary in a couple weeks.
I am. A couple of weeks. I will have been at Loaves Fishes for 7 years.
Wow. Congratulations. That's a nice milestone. 7's a lucky number too, right?
And I hope so. It's been incredible. A lot has happened in those 7 years.
Wow. Well, yeah, because we've went through COVID in those 7 years, right?
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, why don't you give our listeners just a little bit of background about you? What led you to Loaves Fishes and a little bit about your story?
Sure. Well, an interesting part of my past, and I have been fundraising for quite a few years. I don't need to say how many, but a great number of years ago, when I was a young professional, I was invited to be on the board of a lyric opera new forming chapter. They had numerous chapters that met and did a little fundraising for them, and they never had a young professional one. So they asked me to be on the board. I was living in Chicago at the time. And honestly, Paul, that's where I really learned to fundraise in the beginning, because we did things like we called lapsed subscribers. Lyric Opera teamed with WFMT for the Operathon fundraiser. We were very involved in that. And it was really a great exposure to fundraising. You mentioned communication. My undergrad is in communication. And so fast forward a few years, I did end up at NCTV 17 as development director for 6 years. I hosted Spotlight on Naperville for 8 and went to another nonprofit in Hinsdale because they served a very poor section of Chicago, and I was very drawn to that. Our family has tracked for a number of years with a family in Chicago. My husband actually met them on his way to the train as they were asking for money. We came to know them. We came to understand the cycle of poverty, and it really spoke to us. So over the years, I've really wanted to help people in that situation. And that is who we're serving at Loaves Fishes, those who are struggling with low income or poverty.
Wow. So you have quite a history of nonprofit experience. What was the first one? Lyric something opera?
Lyric Opera in Chicago.
It's the Lyric Opera.
Still there today. It's a large music organization. And
such
that
a
young
prestigious organization.
Group, that young professional group has continued to grow, and which is very exciting to see.
Wow. Awesome. Well, we're here to talk about Loaves Fishes. I want people to know this gem in this community and what they've been doing and how they've been benefiting the community. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the programs and services of Loaves Fishes?
Sure. And again, thank you, Paul. So appreciate the opportunity to share what we're doing.
Of course.
So
yeah.
Our mission is to provide healthy food and impactful programs to promote self-sufficiency. And for people who don't know, we are very large. We serve 4 counties, DuPage, Kane, Kendall, and Will. And this is our 40th anniversary. So your timing is excellent. We'll be celebrating that all year.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you. We began in a church in Naperville with just 8 families the first year. And then it grew to a trailer on the property and then a property on Fifth Avenue. In 2011, we moved to the Naperville location, which still has our grocery market and administrative offices. And 2 years ago, we opened then a second building, which is a 30,000 square foot food distribution hub. And in that time, we have gone from serving 8 families to over 8,000 every week. I pulled the numbers from December. They were all over 8,500 in a week.
Oh my.
Now, the exciting thing about Loaves and Fishes, and I think it's one of the things I'm proudest of, is we have 2 arms to what we do. And most people think of us in terms of food insecurity, and yes, that is central to what we do. But we also have the arm, we call them our CARES programs, and those are programs to help people move up on the self-sufficiency scale. So it's things like we'll provide emergency assistance for rent or utilities. We have a car donation program. We help people with their income tax preparation. And one of the hallmarks of the CARES programs is our program called Moving Up. We do it once a year. That is a 20-session intensive that helps clients identify the barriers that are keeping them from moving forward. And then the facilitator helps them, we don't tell them what to do, helps the client determine a path forward and realistic, attainable goals to moving forward.
Wow. There's a little bit to unpack there for a second, because it's not just a mission of a lot of food pantries, which is to end hunger. You've evolved from that for sure. And you say you're a very large organization, which you are. You serve 8,500 people in December a week, which I can't even wrap my head around that number. But the question then is, are you large enough? Because I'm curious about the unmet need. And we were talking earlier about, the rapid increase. Tell us a little bit about that. The need.
Yes. Well, it's interesting. In January of 2022, we were serving about 3,000 people a week. And then this past year, the numbers began to steadily and rapidly climb, primarily due to food inflation and inflation in general. As we know, that everything costs more now. Everything.
Yeah, logistic issues due to COVID and
food costs are the highest. They've been stubborn. They really haven't come down.
Right.
So that really affected a lot of people. And there are still people struggling financially because of COVID. I mean, it takes a long time if you had been unemployed all that time or became in debt during that time. So many, many things came together to make more people need help.
Right. So with that rapid increase, there's still an unmet need out there, even though you're serving 8,500 families in December each week.
Yes.
There are still some people that are a little lower on the self-sufficiency scale due to this. Well, it's probably a myriad of causes, right, that are causing the inflation and
for sure
issues.
Yes.
And going back to your mission, we were talking about you evolved from ending hunger in your communities to making people more self-sufficient and getting higher on that scale. Now you're doing that because you have 2 programs, and one of those programs is helping that self-sufficiency arm, right? And tell us a little bit about that program.
Yeah, those are the CARES programs.
Yep.
So those are the ones that provide. I'll just give you rent as an example. If a person is evicted from their home, that makes it extremely difficult for them to get another apartment. Extremely difficult. Our goal is to prevent that in the first place. It is homelessness prevention. We don't want them to get to that point. And for a lot of families, that short-term help makes all the difference in the world. many of our families, or most of our families, the finances are so tight that one unexpected car repair, and illness, even if you have insurance, there are many costs not covered. And it only takes one ill child. Parent can't work then. And in many jobs, if you don't work, you don't get paid. So the financial situation is so fragile already that it only takes one occurrence to really throw them into financial disarray. So the CARES programs really help bridge that period of time in their lives and then get them connected to other programs that will help. And, happily, many people then don't need us anymore. And that is the goal.
The goal indeed. Yeah. And it's such a great program in our community, and certainly a much needed program, but one that has, I would hope, always a good ending, right? And there's people not in that program for too long. I don't know if you have any stats of, the average time frame that somebody's in that type of a program.
Well, I know for grocery assistance, the average number of visits per household per year is 10.
Okay.
So, and with emergency assistance, we would like to only do that once. Now, during COVID, there were some exceptions, of course, but our goal is that it's a short-term bridge that helps them during that particular time of trial.
Which can make all the difference.
Absolutely.
Just that one time to just not get further down that hole.
Yeah, because it's just a downward spiral. If you become addicted, and then there are costs associated with that, and then getting another apartment, they're going to charge more or want 2 or 3 months of rent up front to start with. That's the other thing we will do, is provide the security deposit if someone is in the process of getting an apartment, because a lot of times that's a barrier for people to becoming housed.
Nice. You also mentioned before, well, I don't know if you mentioned it, but not only was there a rapid increase in demand for assistance and grocery assistance and the CARES program, but on the other side, there's also been, we talked about maybe like a food supply shortage. Tell us about that, how that's impacted you.
That has been a huge challenge for not only us, but all food pantries.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely in the past year, as food inflation rose, and again, it was the highest of anything, food sourcing became scarce. So partners that in the past would have donated more simply could not. And from every direction, we were receiving less food. So we actually put together a food sourcing task force. And that group has looked at everything from, we even have signs in the truck weigh stations along the highway that if they are overweight and they're carrying food, we will take it.
Wow.
And then people have contacted vendors directly, suppliers, logistics companies. We joke around here because if we're driving around and we see a truck and it's any sort of food supply on the name on it, we take a picture of it and come back and call. Can we possibly work with you? So we're making some progress, but it's been slow, and the food supply became challenged at the very time that we had this huge increase in the number of people. So we're working at it constantly, Paul. It's not where we want it to be. And so I would tell your listeners, if you know anybody that's a food supplier or a vendor of any type, we'd love to talk to them. And we just look at it from every possible source right now.
So that's an interesting dynamic, that not only did the increased demand from people happen, but you also had less supply. So the gap widened from both ends. That is correct. A very unique.
Yes. So here's what that meant, and still means. It means we're having to purchase more food. And in the past, where we would get a certain percentage donated, now we have to buy more. which of course costs more.
Their expenses have
And
gone up.
it costs more to purchase that food than it would have 2 years ago. So that's why the advancement team is always working, because those costs are greater than they used to be, and yet we want to serve people. And the other thing I need to share with you is we are very focused on healthy food. We are not giving filler food, because that's the other piece of it. Inexpensive food generally is not as healthy. So that leads to illness like high blood pressure, diabetes. Well,
Processed
then you
foods.
have
Yeah.
medical bills. Which then makes their income stretched even further. So then what a lot of people do, because they have to pay rent, they have fixed expenses, they chintz on food, go to the dollar store or whatever, you can buy a lot of cheese puffs for practically nothing. That is not a healthy diet. We are absolutely committed to healthy food. So that costs more.
Which of course is more money, yes. But you're also teaching them to eat healthy at the same time, and then providing that as well. So
we're trying to break that cycle of unhealthy food, disease, costs associated with that. So then more unhealthy food. We're trying to break that negative cycle.
So that is something I didn't know. So I'm learning something now, because it's not just feeding people that are in need, but it's feeding them healthy food and making a conscious choice, because down the road you're looking at health issues.
Correct.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. So yeah,
we don't even accept soda, candy, or energy drinks. We don't even want it in the building.
Wow. Good for you guys. How do you tell our listeners, how do you measure impact? Yeah, you obviously serving 8,500 people a week. That's one key performance indicator that you use to measure. But we were talking earlier about some other ways you measure impact, and I was very interested in that.
Sure. Well, we obviously do keep our data on the number of people, where they're coming from, various elements. As I mentioned, we're serving 4 counties. So it is helpful for us to know who's coming from where.
Yeah.
And we do need to report that information. But we also do, so that's very much a quantitative measure. But we also do qualitative periodically, where we do surveys with the clients. And they'll say, 95% said they were able to feed their family more fruits and vegetables because they came to Loaves and Fishes. Or 90% said they learned about a new vegetable when they came, something like that. We also measure on the care side. So if we do give emergency assistance, then we measure how many months after they received our emergency assistance for rent or utilities, are they still housed, and are they still be able to pay their own utilities? So we measure in a couple of ways. We are pretty data driven, but I think that we have a responsibility to do so to our donors and certainly the clients.
Yeah, well, I think everybody should be data driven right now, because everything's digital, right? But there's a very big human element to what you do. And so when you're talking about measuring impact, there's nothing better than going to the source, to the beneficiary, and surveying them and measuring the impact that way. And I love the fact that you follow up with people that have been through the CARES program, and see if they're still.
We also ask our clients. So for example, we were thinking of expanding hours. So they did a survey, are there evenings, more hours on Saturday, an additional day for the market? This is for the market. That would be helpful to you. I mean, we could guess, or we could ask the people that would benefit.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So part of this podcast is about leadership. And I'd love to just get some insight from you from a leadership lens. And you've been in a leadership role for many years, even before this role. And we were talking earlier about some challenges and qualities of leadership, and you had mentioned a few. Can we go through some of those? You talked about collaboration. Give us a little bit more about that.
Well, first of all, I think collaboration is key. And I think every leader should be collaborating. I do believe that none of us is as good as all of us. I have that on my wall in my office.
Nice.
And I believe that, first of all, from our team's standpoint, I mean, we're collaborating every day with each other. But first of all, we put together a team that is different. They always say, "Don't hire your clone." And
Yeah.
I'll borrow from a former president, hire people smarter than you. So
Classic.
I
Classic.
don't want six people that are exactly me, because we would be missing all these other skills and talents that I don't have. So I think it's important to surround yourself with people that are different in their skill sets and their thinking, their perspectives, and their experience. In terms of collaboration, and that is a hallmark, by the way, of the Loaves and Fishes way. And I'll give you a couple of examples.
Mhm.
First of all, we'd like to be part of a larger solution. So, food insecurity in these four counties, but we would hope that we can be a part of a solution on a larger scale. So, a good example is we got funding to set up our online ordering system. So, we have clients that get their food through online ordering, and then they just come and pick it up like you do at a
Oh, nice.
grocery store.
Very convenient.
So we made that platform available to any other food pantry in the country. And we have a couple using it at no charge to them, other than, there's just the maintenance fee.
Mhm.
But they don't need to go out, pay to have someone reinvent the wheel. And we feel we have a responsibility on a larger scale to do that. In terms of how Loaves and Fishes collaborates, I'll give you a very recent example. With the food supply being so short for all of us, one thing we've done is we've partnered with a couple of other food pantries in the area, because some vendors will only sell a certain size of order. By going together, we meet that size specification. So one of us will order all of it, and then the other two get their portion, and we all settle up financially. So we are all doing better because we came together and collaborated.
And made that minimum order
Yes.
threshold. So you're not only collaborating through internally teams and individuals, but you're collaborating with outside vendors, partners, other food banks. It's pretty
Yes.
much the hallmark of your operational.
It honestly is the whole way through, Paul. From Mike Cavella, our CEO, our operations team, certainly the advancement team, we all see the value in collaborating.
Wow. And that's a very good leadership skill technique. You'd also mentioned encouraging team members, providing them a path for individual and professional growth. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we are meeting all the time, but we also a couple times a year sit down, talk about everybody has a plan, and is that working, where their particular skills are, but also where their passion is. We try to evolve that with them as they grow and develop. And, ultimately, we want the next generation of leaders. And I think we've got quite a few at Loaves and Fishes. I immodestly say, but I think we've got a lot of great leaders here. And yeah, definitely, we want everyone to continue to grow both personally and professionally.
I happen to agree with you there. I know a few people that I think you're talking about, and I've had the pleasure of meeting them. And yes, your organization's definitely providing a path for leadership for many people, and I think that's important for any leader to do. Right, is to give back and provide a pathway, I guess, and provide
Yeah,
skills and
I
resources.
think it's really important too that the leader steps back and lets the team evolve. And I think that what you find is, first of all, the whole team is better because now you've got a new thing that they learned or a new experience they've had or a new skill that they've acquired or they've been to a conference. So not only do they benefit, but the whole organization benefits. And
So
I
true.
think that's important. And then taking it to the next level, I mean, I get asked fairly often if I'll meet with people about fundraising and, any thoughts that I might have. I'm always happy to do that. I have found over the years, the more I collaborate, honestly, the better everyone does. And isn't that what we all want, is a healthy community?
Indeed. Indeed. Well, I think you've said it all, Nancy. I love your leadership style and the style that you adopted. I think it's a very healthy and um, transparent and honest and worthy way of leading an organization. And I think maybe we could just wrap up with, we can't not talk about all the challenges that you've had in the last 7 years and not mention COVID, right? Because there's still some ramifications, I think, that are happening because of COVID. Can you go into that just a little bit?
Sure. Well, like everyone else, we were just thrown into a whole new world. But we had to rapidly shift to a curbside model of delivery. I'm sure you remember everyone coming out of the retail grocery stores with their grocery carts mounded. And I know our hearts went out to our clients who couldn't do that. And we just had to continue providing food. So we had staff that stepped out of other roles to help with curbside delivery because we couldn't have as many volunteers in the building, if you recall that.
The job descriptions were modified. They were thrown out the window.
They sure
right?
were. From
Everybody
a
stepped up.
fundraising standpoint, I mean, we just hit it really hard, having to get our message out there. This is happening. These people need help. You're at home, and most people were at home. But if you're in a situation where you can help, we really hoped they would, and they did. So proud of the community. We were talking about. We did do in the area the first virtual gala, which was certainly a new experience for everybody, and we were so grateful to partner with NC 17 for
to
that.
virtual, yes.
Yeah,
I saw that. It was a very good episode. It was a very good fundraising thing, and I hope it was successful for you.
It was.
Because you weren't, there was a lot of nonprofit organizations out there that were thinking, the funding is, sponsors are dropping, the funding is uncertain, we don't know what's going to happen. But you didn't take that stance.
No, actually, we really, really had our foot on the pedal. We simply could not let up. There were too many people depending on us, Paul. There's no way. And I know I did hear people say, oh, nobody's giving money now, we're not even going to try.
Right.
Oh, not true. And I think that we did communicate that need, and people really, really stepped up.
Awesome. Well, that's great of our community, and I love our community. And you're serving multiple communities, of course.
Yes.
And I know for a fact that those communities really look upon Loaves and Fishes very favorably, both from the donor standpoint, your corporate sponsors. They really believe that Loaves and Fishes is a gem and a much needed resource in our community that's serving.
So, Paul, that's so kind of you. And I should emphasize that our values are also important. Compassion, dignity, health, hope, and service. And we do try to infuse those through all we do.
What a wonderful collection of values. And I know we talked about the health part a lot, but dignity is also very important too, because
extremely,
especially in this field.
It's hard to walk in and admit you need help. I'll never forget one day walking into the our grocery market. Person was just starting with their cart and they were crying. And it was the first time this individual had ever needed to come to a food pantry. It's very emotional. It's hard to ask for help. And I always say it could be any one of us any day. We don't know what our future holds. So it has to be a compassionate, dignified experience. And I think through the whole organization, we really try to make sure that that is the case.
Indeed. Can you just mention your website for the listeners?
Sure. It's loaves-fishes.org.
And you're still accepting funding, correct? You're still accepting donations.
Always.
Much needed, especially with, you had mentioned the food costs have gone double, triple. We all know that. And,
yep.
And so funding is a way to offset those costs, which is much needed.
Absolutely. 100%. It all helps. And the other thing I should say about Loaves and Fishes that I'm super proud of is we honor every gift, Paul. I know you'll hear some organizations that are always looking for the whale.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say we don't have a couple, but we receive $5 gifts, $25 gifts. We honor them all. They all matter. And some of those people have been with us for years, and they're our biggest ambassadors. So it's something I think a lot of nonprofits, they want to go right to the big gift. All gifts matter, and you need to honor them all. And we do.
Well put. Very well put. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for being part of this. It's my honor to promote Loaves and Fishes, and also just to share your leadership style, which I think a lot of people can gain some insight from. Any parting thoughts for our listeners?
Well, first of all, hats off to you, Paul. You've accomplished a lot in your business, and I know we all admire that. So thank you, and thank you for this opportunity. I will say I love the name of your podcast, Mission Matters, because I think with leadership, it all comes down to the mission. If you examine everything through the lens of that mission, you can't go wrong.
Awesome. Well said. Thank you so much, Nancy. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Right. Till next time, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Mission Matters podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.